This is Groundeffected. My name is your dad, and today's video was sponsored by Toon Studios. Mr. Incredible is a nostalgic character from a nostalgic time. I'm gonna be totally honest, I don't know really how to describe what nostalgic even means. I guess it's a feeling that you have when something is nostalgic from your past. I think. But anyway, Mr. Incredible is one of the models that comes from Toon Studios Patreon this month, and I'm going to be painting it in this video so you can figure out how to do it for yourself if that's what you like. And now the first step with Mr. Incredible is that he has some black leather parts to him. So let's start out with those black leather parts by giving them a little bit of a grey highlight and moving swiftly onto his base. Now on the base of this model, which is a really cool, simple base, it just has the Incredibles logo. And I really am a fan of simple bases, mostly because it saves me time, but also because it's a lot less work to have to do. For this particular base, it was pretty simple. I needed this little emblem to be yellow, and yellow is a very difficult color to paint over anything that is not white or pink. So I pretty much painted it white first, then painted yellow over the top and shaded the edges using a little bit of an orangey kind of yellow. After I'd done all of that, I came back and painted around that with the black to move along. Well, now the next step is setting up the suit of this man. And now of course he is wearing what I would imagine to be a leather suit. I think it has to be leather because I've painted it so that it looks like leather, and so we will all believe that it is leather. And to do that, I gave it a zenithal highlight, and once I was done with that, I sprayed red all over everything. This is just pretty much going to cover everything except for the blackened areas, which will be a slightly darker red and not black because I have now put red over the top. Anyway, getting back to the rest of the model, for the portrait of this dude, I'm going to spray it with white to set up the next steps, which is pinkle. This is the color between purple and pink. And once I've done the pinkle layers, I'm going to spray red. And now this particular skin tone on this character, as he is in animation, is going to be a bit pinker than usual. But before we get to that, we need to get back to the suit, which is going to require me painting Caribou Crimson into the shadows of everything. This is just all I'm doing is spraying from one angle. That's the bottom part. And all of that shadows is getting a little bit darker. And now to add a little bit of a highlight to the model, I'm going to go to the opposite end and spray a slightly brighter red onto those highlight areas. This is going to create the illusion that light is hitting the model. The next step is to add some color onto those hands because gray is a boring color. So I used a blue wash to spray over those hands and also the feet, and I put them aside to dry. And while they were drying, I took a little bit of a deck tan and painted the belt, which is going to need to go yellow. And if you remember from the beginning of the video, you can't paint yellow over anything that is not white or pink. And so I did the exact same process that I used on the base for his belt as well. And when I was done with the belt, I moved swiftly on to painting his underpant, which is on the outside of his normal pant, which is a little bit weird, I'm not gonna lie, but it is obviously a style choice, and I'm not going to judge him for making these choices. Then, when I'm done with all of that, I'm gonna go back to those legs, the feet, and the arms, and I'm gonna give them a panel line wash, pretty much in certain areas. I did leave out like the front over the tops of the shoes, but I painted the whole sole and the fronts of them as well. I then took black paint and painted the black bits on the front of his hand and his little knuckles as well. And now that the base is dry, I can come back and do the last final steps. You may notice that it is green and also shiny. That is because I sprayed a little bit more of that orange yellow over the top. It turned it green. I went with it and I sprayed it clear with a gloss clear. And now I'm going to dry brush the edges with a metallic paint and then put the bottom half of this model together and tell you about the sponsor of this week's video. Toon Studios is a new Patreon on the block where they create STLs of cartoons and nostalgic movies models. Basically, if you pay £20 a month, you subscribe and you receive 2 highly detailed sculpts, exclusive Discord access, and 30% off code to their Gumroad models as well. And every month you will receive super cool models with excellent detail just like these. I just want to quickly mention that they also made this Sheila, which is a rogue from Dungeons and Dragons, the cartoon back in day, and basically I made a whole video how I painted this model, and it will be available for my patrons as well as the patrons over on Toon Studios. So go down into the description to find the link so you can go over and join them right meow. The next step on this model is going to be painting the Incredible logo on Mr. Incredible's chest. Now, a lot of people might panic thinking about how to do this, but what you need to do is learn a word that came to me that I figured out when I was spray painting. I never ever spray painted anything that I shouldn't have, trust me on that, but there was a little word called cutback. And that is a thing that painters do when they paint things. If you're going to paint something like this logo, it's going to be extremely difficult to paint the centerpiece nice and yellow and then carefully put a black line around the outside of that. I'm not saying that you can't do that, but trust me when I say the easier way is to cut back on the paint that you're going to put down. And what you've noticed that I've done in this video is I've painted black to get that black, just like we would paint eyes. That is the nice rim and the edge of everything, and I can use the deck tan to come in and cut back and make it super crispy. If I make a mistake with the deck tan, I can cut back onto the deck tan again with black. Once I've done all of that, it's as simple as putting yellow over the top of that emblem and blending a little bit of that Yandan yellow contrast into the edges to make it look like it has some form of a shape. And look, Bob is in fact now your uncle. I didn't particularly like the way the Yandan yellow was behaving, so I used my airbrush very carefully and sprayed a little bit more on to shape that emblem. Now that I have his torso done, his arms can be connected to the bottom part of his body, and all I have left to do is a friggin' head. Now, I've already laid up what I needed, the undertones of the skin, which is pink and red. It's actually pinkle. You never heard me say the other word. Anyway, I'm going to take some skin tones and I'm going to thin them down about 50-50 with water, and I'm going to spray that pretty much from a zenithal direction. And I'm also going to focus on the cheeks and sometimes at the back of the neck as well. You don't want to forget that there is still skin on the back of your neck. I'm going to then build myself up in highlights going all the way to the highest spot. I also use orcish dermis to add a little bit more pink back into the skin, and when I was done with all of it, I felt like it was way too pink, so I toned it down a little bit by adding a yellow wash over the top and then adding a little bit of Resin flesh shade into the shadows and making them look a little bit darker, should I say. I then came to the lips and painted orcish dermis over the lips. I realized later that this looked terrible, so I came back and put Resin flesh shade over the top of that. The thing around his neck, collar, necklace thing, I painted black, as well as I painted the mask. He has a really cool mask on his face. I have no idea how this is stuck on him. If anybody knows how this mask is staying on his face, I would like to know the answers to this question. But without dilly-dallying about that too much, I'm going to move on to painting his hair. And for his hair, it was simple as painting what looks like a blonde color and then just airbrushing skeleton horde into the shadows. And I'm not too worried about the overspray of this color because it's pretty much, it could be considered a shadow color for the skin tones. For the eyes of this character, I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to take this ink, which is a skin color ink, and I want to paint that first. It's going to go into the crevasses of his eyes, and it's going to make them a little bit darker so that I can come back with a bright, not white, but also not grey. It's white, I don't know, it's highlight skin, and it's from the Nocturna series, Fairy Flesh set, which you can't get in the stock. Never mind, I paint the sclera. That's this fancy word for the whites of the eye with that color. After I've done that, I take a dark blue to shape the iris and a light blue to make it look a bit more exciting. And when I've done with all of that, I will come back in and put a little black dot in the center of all of that and give that little black dot a white highlight. This is the time when you actually need to use white and not deck tan or anything similar. And when I was done with that, I called it done. As with every single one of my videos, I truly hope that you have picked up something in this video. I don't really care if it was something small or something large. Maybe something clicked for you and you're gonna go try it out on your next model. At the end of the day, I just really want to share what I learn and what I have learned to do with people in the rest of the world. And if you are learning to do things from my videos, then please click the like button, click subscribe, consider joining my Patreon, because over on my Patreon I give behind the scenes pictures and work in progress images, and I give a palette for every single model that I paint. So there is a linked palette to those, and there is also sometimes some extra video content. So if you are interested in joining my Patreon, there is a link for that down below. Don't forget the sponsor of this video, Toon Studios. Thank them as well, and I just want to say thank you to my Patreons for supporting me, because without them the lights wouldn't blind my eyeballs and I wouldn't be able to keep making videos every single week for you guys. This is the time of the video where I get to say my favorite thing, and that is, if you didn't like this video, I don't care, and you should actually f*** off.